at it. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on WMAY. And to talk a little bit more about some of the stories we hear across the country of mass shootings leading to mass fatalities. It's not just the violence we see in Chicago at pop-up block parties where a couple of people go in with certain types of firearms and open up and shoot and kill people in large numbers. But you also have instances, as we saw in Philadelphia recently, where the day before Independence Day, you had a suspect there carry around a firearm and seemingly just randomly shooting into people and killing several. Well, to talk a bit more about the mindset and what's really behind this, is it an issue about firearms or is it an issue about mental health? And how can we continue to spread awareness about this? Joining us now is Carole Lieberman. She is talking about the link between trans mental illness and mass shootings. Carole, thanks for taking time with us here on WMAY. And let's get right on into it. Tell us about the individual in Philadelphia that really just, it's alarming as to what happened here. And even the recent statements that the individual made when it comes to why they say they did this, and in particular, statements they're making to law enforcement about these things. Good morning. Thanks for taking time with us.
Good morning. Yes, Kim Brady Carricker. This is the latest, and this, of course, he's getting she, trans. The person, Kim Brady, let's just call them that. Originally was described by police as they. So of course now there's all this brouhaha about oh well, he's really just a man, and he's not trans. And anyway, even his grandmother said that he's gay and that he likes to cross dress. So I guess the grandmother knows best. But what he is saying for why he did it, of course, doesn't make sense, which is why one has to consider mental illness as part of this. He's saying that he did it to show how bad, how dangerous, how it must stop allowing people to get guns. That gun violence is out of control, really, basically, is what he was saying. And so he was proving it by, going on this rampage. Of course, that doesn't make sense, but a lot of people who are committing crimes, especially crimes where there are more than one person killed or injured, it does have to do with mental illness. And that the reason why there are so many more mentally ill people walking the streets and committing crimes is because of the psychiatric hospitals. The state and county psychiatric hospitals have been closed. It's been a while now, and that's where many of these people would have been were these hospitals not closed. There isn't enough room in the more acute hospitals that there are left, and even if people do get admitted there, they are kept it's on a 72-hour hold, and so after 3 days they are released. And of course 3 days is not enough to treat someone with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, and so they give them a prescription, send them on their way, and when the prescription runs out, they don't go to the local clinics and so on, which was what was envisioned for them when they closed the hospitals. And then, of course, COVID made things worse. The lockdowns actually made things worse because people weren't allowed to, go out and go see doctors. It was much harder to be able to continue to get treatment.
We're talking with Carole Lieberman. She is a board-certified psychiatrist and somebody who's looking at what's not just this one case in Philadelphia, Carole. I'm sure you're familiar with tons of other cases across the country. And really just this idea, too, of we've been talking about the possibility of mental illness and even psychiatric drugs that may be used to help somebody who's suffering from a mental illness and how those could have adverse reactions, all the way back into Columbine even. So why isn't there more focus on that particular issue, the mental illness and the psychiatric medications that may have adverse reactions on some individuals, causing them to lash out. Why do you think there's not as much focus on that? Instead, we see policymakers focus on the tool and say, hey, we need more gun control. What's really going on here?
Well, first of all, the answer isn't gun control. I can definitely say that. It's not about the guns. Certainly, there have been lots of stabbing incidents. I mean, people who want to kill people find a way. But, as far as the drugs, drugs have been maligned. The problem really isn't the drugs. It's what's happened to the psychiatric profession. Insurance companies and different government plans and so on don't want to pay for psychiatrists to do therapy. In other words, what they pay is so little that to be able to do a 45 minutes or 50 minutes session of psychotherapy becomes untenable for most psychiatrists. I actually continue to do that. I won't give drugs to anyone who won't be coming to see me for therapy at least once a week. But the problem is that because so many psychiatrists, in order to, I guess, keep their standard of living, have gone the way of doing med visits. They see a patient for half an hour, sometimes less, and ask them about their symptoms and pick out a drug and give it to them. And the person and then they give them an appointment for 3 months, 1 month to 3 months later. It's getting, longer, like many are 3 months. And so the person then, takes the medication, and maybe it's not the right medication. The only way you get to know that is if you see them in a week, to be able to look at the dose and to decide if you need a different medication and so on. So it's really about the ways that the medication are managed, not the medication itself. And also the fact that people aren't getting therapy, they're just getting prescriptions. So that is more of a problem than the actual medications.
Again, we're talking with Carole Lieberman, a board-certified Beverly Hills psychiatrist, about the focus on mental illness that seems to be driving a lot of these mass shootings, including the one that happened a week ago, just before the Independence Day holiday, with the suspect, Kim Brady Carricker, a 40-year-old male. And even the news conference that the prosecutor had after this shooting, Carole, they dismissed that this individual is trans, saying that they never publicly came out as trans, so they're calling them he. It was interesting that was a partial focus of that news conference. So if you could touch on the issue of gender dysphoria, and is that something that's not being taken as seriously as it should be taken?
Well, gender dysphoria is a real psychiatric disorder. It's in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, even the latest one, DSM-5. And it is basically someone who is whose discomfort with their biological sex, is causing them social and affecting their work life and their social life and their life in general. Now, there really aren't that many people who have this disorder. You would not know that, by what we see in the news and so on. But it is being manufactured today. The problem is that there aren't a lot of people who naturally, authentically are feeling this, but especially kids are being fed propaganda and told that what is wrong with them, if they're feeling unhappy or anxious, depressed, whatever their psychological problems are, loneliness from the COVID and so on, whatever their psychological problems are, they're being told that it has to do with the fact that they're not really a girl if they were just born into a girl's body, or they're not really a boy, they were just born into the wrong body. And so teachers are convincing them that that they should, if they change their sex, then they will be happy and life will be rosy, and kids are vulnerable to this after coming out of lockdown and so on. And so they believe them, and they do the pronouns and they do the hormones and they do the surgery, and then they come out of it all and they realize the grass wasn't greener. I'm not any happier than I was before. In fact, my problems are worse. And this is huge malpractice. It's child abuse.
Carole, finally here, just to, I guess, in a way, provide some kind of avenue for people to better understand how they can address those who are experiencing mental illness. Even with this suspect in Philadelphia, Kim Brady Carricker, apparently the family members noticed erratic behavior before the suspect went out and allegedly shot and killed people in Philadelphia, seemingly at random. A lot of times it's unfortunate, but people who are suffering from schizophrenia, they may not have those family support structures in place to, stay on top of their family member, to make sure they're going to therapy, to make sure that they're taking a medication that's working for them and giving them that balance. So sometimes they're out there on their own in all of this. That's a totally separate issue from those who do have family members. So what message do you have for family members out there who have a loved one who's experiencing mental illness? What should they do? What kinds of behaviors should they keep an eye out for? And are there resources that they can access to get a better handle on this before somebody injures somebody else or themselves?
The sooner that you step in, the better. The earlier that you catch mental illness and get treatment for it, the better. And so, family members who hesitate or who say, oh, well, my, child or my husband, or they don't want to go see a psychiatrist. Well, listen, you're going to have a lot more problems if they don't get treatment. It is sad that some people still feel there is this stereotype. Some people feel you have to be crazy, so to speak, in order to go see a psychiatrist. And that really isn't, there are treatments for all of these things. I guess the key message is for schizophrenia, bipolar, all any kind of psychiatric problem you can think of, there are treatments for it. But the treatment, and you need to try to convince your person to go get help. You can go with them, to start with, and there are resources. You need to first try to find out something that would be the best for them. At the very least, though, you can always take them, or you can always call 911, or you can always take them to the nearest hospital emergency room. Once you get them into a hospital emergency room, if there is some serious, or whatever their disorder is, if it's a serious disorder, they may indeed be then hospitalized. Or if it's a less serious disorder, they'll be given resources. They'll be given names of psychiatrists that you can take the person to. So you can't, people are afraid, well, I don't want to tell my child that they need to go see a psychiatrist. And with this man, for example, with Kim Brady, yes, there were people who saw that he was getting increasingly agitated. They should have either, if they couldn't convince him to go get help, which, it seems like he wasn't really ready to be convinced, but then someone should have called 911 sooner and said, this man looks like he's going to explode.
Obviously, a lot to think about with this, as I don't think that there's going to be any calming of the situation in the near future, but the more awareness we can spread about it, the better. Carole Lieberman, author, psychiatrist, and you've got an upcoming book, Murder by TV, A Descent into Madness, the story of the Ginny Jones talk show Murder, for which she was the defense psychiatrist. So greatly appreciate you taking the time here, and maybe we connect again soon, all right?
Sure, it's my pleasure.
It's Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.